may not be so spooky in the corner and you may not need to crouch, but Zur is still always here every Friday as he is and has another selection of exotic items to go through, so let's take a look at them, see if they're anything worth your time. Now, starting off with the usual, we do have two catalysts on the front. The first is the Tractor Cannon catalyst, which is a simple one because all it does is increases ammo reserves. Now, while Tractor Cannon itself isn't exactly a killing machine, it is really effective in raids and endgame scenarios with the weakening debuff that it applies to literally anything it shoots. So that being said, more ammo is more than enough to make this top tier for Tractor Cannon. Because obviously the more ammo, the more weakening, the more damage, and the more damage means the more things you absolutely deal with. Then next is the Lemonarc catalyst, which is something that you don't think about when you think about Lemonarc, because it gives you unrelenting, which basically means that the more things you kill in rapid succession, you'll get heals, and killing bigger things will heal you more often. So at that point, it's just generally good. Lemonarc is generally good in almost every aspect for PvE and PvP, especially if you get a kill with this thing. Unrelenting is a solid chunk of heals, so if you run any sort of healing build, Unrelenting either adds to it or it can save your skin in a near-death scenario. The next for exotic armors, some that are really good, some are kind of just there. The first is the Bombardiers, which basically dodging leaves behind an explosive that detonates after a short delay, dealing damage to targets around it. Now, it's unique in the aspect of it amplifies your dodge, but at the same time, it's mainly useful for being available on Prismatic, because it makes it so that anything your super affects the damage type, and the damage type also gives bonus effects. As you can see, it gives the general enemy anti-debuffs, or weird words, I know, but it does everything that every element will do. Arc will blind something, Solar will scorch, Void will suppress, Stasis will slow, and Strand, I almost said Stasis again, Strand will sever the target. Now, some things would have been better than others, but then it's all generally quite useful. And I imagine this is more at home in the Crucible anyways, just because, you know, dodging is something that hunters are good for, and that's literally something only hunters are good for. So a dodge build that blinds your target could be something that's quite nifty. New Age Gemini Jesters, if you will. The next is a piece of armor that is dreadfully just kind of It got recently updated a little bit, but it's still just kind of, there's no good way to say it, it's just real meh. It gets it so that you have ability energy when damaged, and while you have a Void super equipped, rapid final blows and final blows while critically wounded will grant you Devour. Initially, it's still quite good, although there's plenty of other Devour setups that is a lot better. Personally, at least something what I have is I just run Void with Severance Enclosure, a big Void nuke build, and I just make it so that orbs can get you Devour. Same with, what's the word I'm thinking of? Void Breaches. So it's useful, but I would say it's useful until you find something much better, which is almost anything that I can apply to Void subclasses right now. But then again, everything's got its own build, so it's useful in every right to yourself. The next is Sanguine Alchemy, which got a heavy buff this season, so now anytime you are standing in a rift, damaging a target will mark it, and you deal extra damage to said marked target and gain an additional bonus damage with weapons that have a damage type that match your super. So weapon final blows while also standing in a rift, pause the rift cooldown, extending its duration, basically meaning you just have longer rifts and you deal additional damage to any target in the rift. Plus, when you actually level it up and go to Well of Radiance and use Whisper of the Worm, this is a top damage dealer for things like the Witness or otherwise endgame activities where you have very long damage phases. Think Oryx, Golgoroth, the Witness, and maybe even Vesper's Host if you can get your shots in. But aside from that, that's pretty much the gist of this exotic. Your Wells give you bonus damage to targets if you're dealing sustained damage, and bonus benefits from matching up your elements. So with that, that is pretty much everything I can say about the current available armors. The next is, of course, the exotic class items. They're once again available if you wish to re-roll and just get additional rolls. They are affected by the, attunement that is available at your ghost in the Pale Heart. So keep that in mind on the front page if you're hunting specific things. And then we also have part of a old armor set. This is Biosphere Explorer. From the Season of the Witch, this was essentially a weird kind of hive bone artifact, which is actually, surprisingly enough, Artifice armor. So if you wanted some free Artifice armor, it is currently present. Although this roll isn't the highest, most people would recommend when getting Artifice armor something closer to 68, 69, 70 stat armors. But regardless, if you literally just needed a piece of Artifice armor so you can throw another mod elsewhere, there is an option. And I imagine every single class would have an option from that point. Now, next into our exotic options, we have the usual Hawkmoon, giving a quick draw roll this time with corkscrew rifling and a textured grip. For more handling and slightly decreased stability, solid enough. Hawkmoon, you can't really change it too much. It just kind of tipped the scales on the stats. And then into our main weapons with our kinetic energy and heavy, we have first Monte Carlo, a generally greatly useful weapon if you're looking for melee builds, as dealing damage with this weapon reduces your melee cooldown and grants a chance to fully charge your I said super, that's wrong. Fully charge your melee ability with each kill. Coming with high cals as well as basically swashbuckler, it is quite good. But then as well, you get melee reloads, and its catalyst makes it so that you consume high Markov chain ability to use the bayonet that also refunds melee energy. So it is generally something made if you have no exotic but have a melee build. This is the only thing you should really be running in a vacuum. But then next is Risk Runner. Similarly so, this is an SMG that benefits for tanking, because you take reduced arc damage after taking arc damage, and you also get chain lightning between all shots in an overcharged state. And as well, when you do have the ricochet chain lightning, you do reload your ammo for free just by chaining the lightning, so it is generally good at infinite ammo ad clear. Plus, you get bonus stats from the catalyst, but that's pretty much all it really does. Could use benefits from maybe a little bit of blinding and more arc, but that's just that. Next is the Black Talon, which is basically a sword that can throw energy bolts, and its catalyst makes it so you can just get a little bit of a damage buff on said energy bolts, but this isn't something exactly to go home about. It's a fun gimmick sword. In reality, you slash a few things. It does have a pretty solid perk with Tireless Blade. Aside from that, its whole shtick is the fact that it can throw energy bolts at a distance, which we do have the Boltcaster, or I wouldn't say ripoffs, but the mini Boltcasters in swords that can throw things anyway. So what makes this sword unique isn't exactly there anymore. But then, with that, just blasting through our legendary weapons, we have the Stasis Aggressive Frame Submachine Gun and Blood Feud that is also craftable. The Spare Rations Adaptive Frame Kinetic Hand Cannon from Season of the Deep. The Brigand's Law also craftable Arc Rapid Fire Frame Sidearm from Season of the Plunder. The Soul Survivor Adaptive Frame Arc Sniper Rifle also from Season of the Deep. Code Duello, a high-impact solar rocket launcher all the way back from Season of the Chosen. Memory Interdict, a Void Adaptive Frame Grenade Launcher that is all the way back from Season of the Splicer and from the original factions. And the usual class swords for each class. And the armor seems to be the classic Menagerie armor if you wish to get a refresh and look like you're fresh out of the Leviathan. But with that, that is everything available at Xur's store right now. And of course, there's the usual bits of just materials here in case you have the coin. But with that, that is everything he has for you this week. And he will, of course, be gone with the reset. My name is TheMadScorpyon. I will see you in the next video.